Welcome to the SPL Rundown. I'm your host, APM, here this week with three wonderful analysts. We have Jmac Tucker of the SPL casting crew. We have Vonny of Twitter fame, I guess. And of course, we have Cherryo here, former SPL jungler, former SPL coach as well, to break down all of the Week 4 SPL action in Phase 3 here. Stick around a little bit later for my interview with Variety, the solo laner for the Camelot Kings. But first, Week 4 has ended, so it's time for us to break it down, starting with the Camelot Kings versus the Jade Dragons. Man, this was a kind of crazy game. I think Jade Dragons sort of really looked strong early game, and then, I don't know, man. The Kings are just able to hold out, and there's some team fights at the end that just go their way, and they're able to capitalize on them. I think Game 1, there was a pretty good FG call from the Kings to sort of steal that away from the Jade Dragons, and they were able to use that to take Game 1. And Game 2 was very back and forth. Some great Phoenix defenses from the Jade Dragons, but ultimately the Kings come and take this set. Were you expecting, I think the Titans also won and beat the Jade Dragons this week. Is this maybe kind of a bad week to be a Jade Dragons fan? I mean, of course it is, 2 losses, right? But I don't know, it seems like there's some trouble brewing in Dragon's Land.
Yeah, I agree. I think less so the Titan set, but we'll get to that later. But as far as the King set goes, I think there's first a lot to be said about Captain Twig. I know there's always a lot of talk about his particular jungle style and how he's kind of a utility jungler. And I think Sam was one of the better junglers in a traditional assassin role. You know, obviously all the maces getting buffed, jungle being in a much better spot than it was previously. I think Sam was one who you'd put as one of the top performers, at least in what you anticipate. And while he did play well, Twig was there to match him. I remember there was a point in Game 2 where Sam was like 7-2 and Twig was like dead even, but Sam was down 2 levels in farm to Twig. And Twig pulling out the dodgy, the low key has shown that even in this meta, with his veteranship, he can perform. And so kudos to him. And I think the Kings' incredible macro just showed through, and that's the reason that they won this set.
Hey, Mac, are you worried about the Jade Dragons at all here, or just more of a good victory for the Kings here?
I think I'm less worried about the Dragons as a whole and more of the duo lane. It felt like less in this set, more in the Titan set, but at least at the tail end of this set, it kind of felt like this was Mike and Panda having a hard time of figuring out where they wanted to go in this matchup. Like, Panda Cat was pretty much zoned out entirely in a lot of these team fights towards the latter halves of the game. Especially the Titan set, it felt like Panda Cat just didn't get to have much of an impact at all. But I think a lot can be said about Captain Twig, who most people, as highlighted by Vonny, would say that he is more of that utility style. But I think that now that he's had a few weeks to kind of practice getting back into the traditional, just in-your-face, kill them all, burst assassin style, it's worked out really well for him. And I think more than anything, it's just the Kings' map presence over anything else. Because yes, the Dragons were winning fight after fight after fight every single time, Game 1 and 2. But the Kings were just like, okay, oh no, we lost Variety for the 6th time in 20 minutes. Well, while they're all doing the Gold Fury, everybody else is healthy. Let's just go do Fire Giant and take that while nobody else is paying attention. Because to me, that's the Dragons going, oh, okay, they lost their solo laner. They can't do anything. They're all going to back to base. No big deal. Let's get this objective and leave because we won the fight. The Kings know just how much damage they're able to do with all of their players, and they're able to make these kinds of plays across the map. And when it comes down to it, I mean, kills in the first 10 minutes of the game means so little at this point in Smite, because you have to wait for Gold Fury to be up, you have to wait for Fire Giant to be up, you have to wait for the Pyromancer to be up. So until these actual neutral targets come up on the map, the early kills are just to try and help snowball a lane. But even with Sam for Soccer going 5-0 in 4 minutes on the Tsukiyomi in game number 2, they didn't get anything off it. They couldn't steal camps because the timers were already down for them. Buffs were already picked up by that point. So it's just at that point, killing for the sake of kills. I mean, even though the Dragons won game 2 with a killed lead, at one point they were up 17-6 or something like that. The Kings just have better objective play across the board, and I think that's where the Dragons have really been struggling the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Here, I wanted to ask you about Twig picking up Loki. I don't think we've really seen Twig play Loki all that much throughout his career. Maybe only a little bit here and there in Season 8, but we've seen it be pretty effective. Is this something unexpected, in your opinion, from Captain Twig?
No, I think Loki is like actually pretty OP. Like I actually think he's the best jungler if you get out of the early. I mean, obviously he doesn't have a bad early, but he's kind of like his that like I don't know. He's just some comps would do really well into him. Not the comp that they had. Like if the other team had like the Sylvanas in the disco, I think Loki would have struggled and stuff. But like yeah, the Loki like I what I've been playing in SSC, like I just pick it every game and like it's like it feels really OP. Like you get late game and you just one try everyone. Doesn't surprise me that he's playing it. I was surprised though with how Dragons play. Like I've never seen Sam go 5-0 and like nothing happens. Like
Yeah.
I really do think this team has been like they're kind of like I don't think they've been having like good plans anymore. I think they're just kind of playing like ranked. Like they just kind of go into a game and Sam tries to gank solo and it's like let's try to gank duo ruler. Like there's nothing really happening. Like there's no way you have a jungle that's 5-0 and you don't invade buffs of it. I don't think they did a single buff. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember like there's no really buffs invaded. There's kind of just a chill game. They got a gold. They showed like a couple team fights. Eventually, like just Kings had their items and they could just team fights. And then honestly, Loki gets Tsukuyomi. Like if Loki just finds Tsukuyomi, he just insta kills him. Like it's not even gonna be close. Like Loki will just one shot Tsuki. Even if Tsuki has Aegis, it's like what the even Aegis, you know. And I'm pretty sure that happened like once or twice the game where Twig just solos Sam before the fight starts. And without Sam, I don't think they ever win a team fight. Honestly, their comp is not equipped to like deal with the Kings comp. I don't think they have any easy targets to kill. So they will need the Tsukuyomi damage to kill the backline. Because if there's a Sylvanas, right? Like if there's a Sylvanas, your solo enemy is not gonna like kill Izanami Disco on your own. Maybe if they had like a different god, like he could do something. But yeah, like they couldn't really deal. Like when it got to late game, the comp just struggled without Sam. And I think like they shouldn't be upset they lost. They should just focus like why are we not? How are we getting like that fed and not really getting anything off it? Like how can we be that ahead and have our jungler be behind at like level 18 instead of us like if this was Worlds, you know, you should be like level 20 and the other should be like 15. Like that's what we really should happen if you have that good of a start. Like because it's really easy to fall behind in jungle. Like you could easily snowball like a lead like that. So probably like the worst thing for them. But honestly, like this is like the best Dragons should feel before Worlds. Like they went into Worlds last 2 times, being like the best, one of the best. I think they'd rather go. I think they'd rather go as just like chilling, no pressure, just play their best. You know, I don't think it really matters that much. And let's be honest, this phase doesn't actually matter. You're still going to group stage, and that's what's going to decide who's going to playoffs. Like this is just all for seeding. Not even seeding, it's just like for the top 2 teams so they can choose like the group stage, you know?
Yeah.
So they probably don't really care that they lost. It's just they really just gotta figure out why they're not closing on these games when they have such a big lead.
Vonny, Jmac, any thoughts about the Kings and their victory? Was there anything, you know, I know we talked about the Loki 1v1s a little bit already, but are there any other sort of positive signs from them? Or, you know, was it just, you know, let's get to the late game and our team fight is going to be better? That's the belief there.
I think that's just the mentality the Kings have. I mean, if you look at some of the comps they're drafting, it really is around the more team fight stage. I mean, King Arthur, a great god to get in, disrupt the backline. Sylvanas with this Lotus Crown rush has been perfect for team fights at all stages of the game. And honestly, this Discordia that big man Tings, you know, we things that we kept talking so much on the desk, it's like, oh, he's one of the only players bringing it out here, you know, between like him and then Dardes would sometimes bring it, and then we even saw it bleed out into another comp. I think it was the Dragons who brought it out at one point.
I think it was, yeah, later in the weekend.
But like, you get somebody like Big Man Tings and you let whoever's, you know, carrying the early stage of the game get that extra damage, and late game it ended up being, I think it was Twig who ended up having the buff around him for a while, and you just let him just go hog wild and just, you know, one shot other people. They're playing a lot to their strength, which is more of this farm centric and then team fight for the latter half. Pick gods that won't lose you a lane. Variety obviously kind of got a little bullied in game number 1. That's to no fault of his own. I mean, they just decided we're going to kill Variety on cooldown. But
yeah.
And one thing that maybe the Dragons, and specifically, I don't want to throw Panda Cat under the bus necessarily, but I think he's just got to find something to stick to the meta here. Because like this Amuzin Cobb, like you look at what he drafted Amuzin Cobb into, I think by that point there was already like Terra, King Arthur, and like Izanami picked or something like that. I'm trying to see how far in the draft he had it. Izanami, Discordia, Terra.
I think Amuzin Cobb was the last pick for the Jade Dragons.
Yeah, King, and then King Arthur. So everything except for Dodgy was already locked in, and then he locked Amuzin Cobb. which with Umoja, sure, you're guaranteed to be safe in lane no matter what. But late game, the god just kind of doesn't do a whole lot. And then game number 2, I'll just say it. I want to stop seeing Ho Yi. He has 1 win and like 13 losses. This god is, in theory, he's really good, but he has had 0 performance outside of Zapman's single win. I think it was over like the Valkyries or something like that. So maybe across the board, Ho Yi's kind of become the new Zhang Kui.
People just love winning lane. Like, he's just really good in lane. You don't really, like, he's really good 1v1 character, but you don't get 1v1. Like, in scrims, people played stupid and you get 1v1 kills and you get, like, some nice bounces. But when it comes to SPL, people are just not going to risk it. This god is just going to be, like, free food, like, in team fight.
All right, the next set of the week was the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Oni Warriors. I think the set ended up being a 2-0 for the Atlantis Leviathans. But that's not to say that the Oni Warriors weren't really fighting in. It was some pretty slow games, I think, in both of the games. And maybe all of the Levi's sets this week were some pretty slow games. That's a bit of foreshadowing as well.
Oh, man.
But, the Levi's, they're, Sanguine has always been strong for the past couple years in the team fights. And I think they're sort of leaning on that identity a little bit to win some of these sets, especially in these more calculated, slow, lower paced, as far as kills go, games and sets. Are you happy with this sort of style, reverting back to this heavy team fight style for the Levi's? Or is it, if it's going to work, it's going to work, and you got to play that way?
Yeah, I think when Zapman first saw this or joined this team, they went through a bit of a honeymoon phase. They had a really, really good run at the most recent playoffs before, obviously losing to the Titans. But even then, we saw them getting a bit out of their comfort zone. And so I think now Zapman is really ingratiating himself into the team and the culture of the team. And I think we're going to see them, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, I think revert back to a bit of the more methodical play that they were known for before. However, I think that they've shown now they still have that gear of activation, if necessary, in which they can turn up the ante, pull out some spice picks, and do things that they necessarily weren't willing to before Zapman was in there. But as far as draft goes, there's actually something that I want to comment on, and that was the fact that we saw a bit of a resurgence from King Arthur, especially paired with the Discordia. In the first game, Arthur was banned in the second phase by the Leviathans away from Nika.
Right.
And in the previous set, the Arthur Disco combination was picked twice. And it didn't, it was okay. It didn't really do its job because Variety died early game to early ganks in both of those games and fell behind, he and Twig. But the thought was still there, and the Leviathans was privy to it as well, as they banned it against the Warriors. And when it wasn't banned in the next game, the Warriors then put out that draft strategy. And so I think that's something to keep an eye on, maybe going into group stages. The resurgence of King Arthur, especially with the prevalence of Disco now, looking to leverage that solo pressure.
I think it's going to be a Nike meta again, unfortunately. I remember Worlds before playoffs last year, it was Nike, and now, I don't know, the fact that Thorns got nerfed and Thunder got buffed and she's still being played is kind of sad. This character is so boring to watch and play against. It's you basically don't have a hunter in these games. But I do think that's all because of the drafts as well. People are not drafting that much CC, but even then she gets speeds anyways. And Thunder got nerfed, so I don't even know. Thunder that barely takes her shield now. It's not actually that insane. So I don't know. I don't know what you do with this character. I'm pretty sure Nike will be 100% Big Ben rate. I'm kind of confident that she's going to be played so much in the group stage. It's just a very obnoxious character. Wait, is the group stage? No, there's still one more week, right?
Yep,
right.
Just still one more week.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see how it goes. There's still one more week, then we have a week off, and then the group stage, maybe we'll see some nerfs, but I doubt Nike's getting nerfed anytime soon. I think Nike and Arthur will kind of be at the top, and Cthulhu maybe with them, Artio, of course. But I don't mind Arthur. He's been gone for a while. He's kind of a fun character. Nike's just so boring. But for this set, both games were kind of the same. Especially game one, I remember the fact was just waiting for their Boomba Spear power spike. It was probably really clear with what they were playing. Get the Boomba Spear on or Uller and set and one shot FG, and we win the game. And that's what they just went to FG at 23 minutes. That's why I'm not really like too like annoyed when people say like, oh, let's just play for the late game. You get your starter item finished by 23 minutes. That's not really late game. Like you can stall out a game for like 10 like early game ends by like 10 minutes. You stall out a game for 10 more minutes. You get your items. You're kind of chilling. Like it's not really that hard. If everyone is playing disciplined, I think it's kind of hard to snowball a game right now. Like I don't think you can ever draft only early game. You can draft with pressure to try and get a lead, but your comp needs to be still good late game, because like the way Smite is right now, in my opinion. So Leviathans are like kind of happy with the way they're playing right now, like their playstyle. I mean, it's gonna work right now, but no, hopefully when it comes to like real tournaments, they have some like different ideas, like different ways they want to play the game, because everyone's gonna expect this from them, and I don't know if like it's gonna be good for them to just go at Worlds and just play this exact playstyle group stage or any important tournament really. Right, so. Right. But for the regular phase, that's how everyone should play, in my opinion. You just play like that. You just get to the late game and just team fight and kind of like get some good practice.
Jmac, your thoughts on this set?
Yeah, honestly, so I remember I was actually casting this one. I was like, man, I wish something would happen, because we're 9 minutes in. The score is like 4-3 in game number 1. We're 9 minutes in. I'm like, all right, cool. There's been a lot of action. They've got like one of the most obnoxious comps I've ever seen of like Geb, Morrigan, and Hunbats. Like that should be kill on cooldown when Morrigan's ultimate is up like every single time. And the Warriors did that for like the first 9 minutes. And then Shinto was just like, all right, guys, I'm going to sit in tower for however long it takes. And then nothing happened until a fire giant pull, and then they wipe them and end the game. It's just like, oh, okay, well, that's how the game is going to be. And it just reflects the Leviathans playstyle. They go against the comp. They say, okay, what we're going to do against them isn't going to work early. We're just going to farm. We're just going to wait towards late game. And it works out somewhat for them. I think the problem that they might run into now is this new cringe comp that the Titans have started up here. And they unfortunately kind of got to experience it a little bit themselves.
Yeah.
But one thing I am hopeful of with the Leviathans is usually before they were kind of when they were Sanguine at the time, they were kind of a meta chaser team. They were always kind of a little bit behind the meta, but when they found something that worked, they stuck with it, and that was pretty much it. And then they started developing themselves more into a meta. I'm not going to say a meta defining team, but one that would get like a step ahead of the meta. And then once the meta caught up to them, they knew how to kind of combat it. Now they're also kind of chasing back behind what the Titans have been doing with this composition that the Titans are starting to run. So I'm confident that as the group stages come through, I don't think these two are going to be in the same one, and they're probably going to both Leviathans and Titans wind up as the top two. But I think that now that everybody's kind of gotten a chance to see what the Titans do with this composition, it probably won't get let through as many times. I think Cthulhu's probably going to become a staple ban if you're ever against the Titans team. And I think that even the Dragons are going to have some respect thrown their way to make sure that one gets banned away, just because it's a stupid god. He doesn't even have to kill people. Just the amount of damage he can do by himself. And then you throw potentially a second one. I think that Morrigan, Cthulhu, those are going to be gods that people are going to now have in the back of their minds, player specific maybe, over anything else. I think this one was just the only Warriors. They drafted really good comps, and then they just didn't really do a whole lot with it. Like game one, they started it, and then Leviathans decided their answer to the comp was to never fight the comp until it was necessary, which worked. And then it took them a little bit longer to do in game two, but it kind of did the same thing, like 12, 13 minutes, a lot of early action. Then it kind of just stopped and didn't do anything. And then, oh, hey, objective is here. But I think it was actually the Warriors who started a fire giant, and then the Leviathans said, oh, now you guys are ready to actually do something. And hardcore jumping in with Nike. I'm in agreement. Nike might be the most boring solo laner in the game to watch. Next to, I'll even say next to Ardio. I think that Nike might even be more annoying to deal with than Ardio. But God, I can't argue with her win rate, man. She's like 70+% win rate. Like it is a really good god. And it's so unfortunate because it might be one of the most hard to watch gods, because she just doesn't do anything in lane, and then you get to team fights and she just pushes people forever.
Yeah, especially in this new jungle where everything, there's a lot more rocks. I feel like there are a lot of corridors that Nike just literally shuts off.
It's the stuff them in a locker god that every time barrier is up, I said, all right, which locker are they getting pushed in today?
I did want to get your guys' thoughts on the Charybdis. I think Zap has sort of been the only one to play it.
It's bad. It's bad. I'm just gonna say it. It's bad. It is good at one thing and one thing only, and that's surviving for unnecessary lengths of time.
I mean, it is getting she is getting quadra buffed, right? Like the next
That's
patch.
true.
Yeah, the
It's
one
true.
that's
I
coming.
think,
Like
before
literally
Crucible.
everything on her is getting buffed.
Yeah,
but
like
right now she's
her damage numbers are getting bumped like that. Well, the damage reduction on like her abilities are getting
Mhm.
like she's gonna do more damage. Basically, I do think her damage is pretty awful right now, and I think her ult. I just hate her ult. I
It's
hate.
so
It's
bad.
bad. It's definitely the worst part of her kit.
Yeah, I also just like hate the concept of it. It's like it's literally Scylla ult, but just way worse.
Mm.
And I like it's not doesn't really fit a hunter. You know, like why is a hunter just gonna do this for like in a team fight? I just wish they give her something a bit different, honestly. But maybe we will see that. Like hopefully.
Yeah.
Like if she's not good, if she's good, then sure, but I don't know why she'd ever be good. Like sure, you could argue her 3, but I just feel like I'd rather play other characters than. Is it her 3? I think it's her 3. I
Yeah,
just
yeah, the
assume it's her
Whirlpool.
3. Yeah. Like maybe that's the only thing that's like redeeming in her kit. But even then, it could get cancelled pretty easily with like not completely cancelled, but interrupted by a lot of characters.
The Tartarus Titans versus the Jade Dragons. And as we mentioned before, unfortunately, the Dragons lost both their sets this week, and the Titans are sort of continuing their run of good form, I want to say, and are able to take this set 2-1. You know, Jmac mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the Cthulhu, I think, is Cthulhu. I don't know. I don't know how to say it.
I thought you were memeing.
There's 3 different ways that it's called. I've heard all 3 different iterations. There's the Cthulhu, there's Cthulhu, and Cthulhu, which I use Cthulhu. I use the latter
I think
of the 3.
Cthulhu is definitely the easiest one.
I mean,
I've heard Lulu more than Cthulhu.
It does seem pretty impressive with having both of them. I remember watching that final, I think, team fight in Game 3 where it's just 2 Cthulhu running down the mid lane, and the Dragons just, even if they're running away, it doesn't seem to matter in the face of 2 Cthulhus
like
in the ult.
14, 16.
I vividly remember. So I work on the SPL weekly recap each week that goes up on the YouTube, and after I do the scripting, then we record it after SPL Sunday, and then I go back and get highlights like Sunday night, Monday morning, and then send that to the editor. And I vividly remember, like, okay, I need to go back and find the highlight of the 2 Cthulhus running down the mid because they were synchronized in like 2 or 3 of their attacks. Is the coolest looking thing, but also the most terrifying thing to ever witness. Like, I would not wish that on my worst enemies. But yeah, this Cthulhu comp, even just like Cthulhu Aphrodite plus like defensive style frontliner is like one of the most obnoxious comps to deal with because you can't get to the backline. Their backline is already in your frontline, and then if you do get to a backliner or you almost get like a frontliner killed, the Aphrodite just keeps them alive from healing, from their ultimate. You pair that with something like, I don't know, you throw like a Nike in there or something, or like, you know, just any kind of something tanky that has its own shields. You can't kill them. It's just impossible to kill them.
Yeah, I do want to mention in games 2 and 3 here, Aurora was also able to get the Geb, which is sort of, I think, maybe the priority pick for supports at this point, right?
Yeah, I think he's the best support by far now. As soon as the change happened, character is like super OP right now. I don't know why they decided to deal him so much damage, but he'll also get nerfed. No, like the gods like Geb, they shouldn't be OP. Like they're too obnoxious to play against. You want them to be OP. I mean, Titan went in for like the full cringe comps that are really hard to play against, like the Mori, Cthulhu. Kind of like was a thing like I think like last year. Like I remember seeing it a little bit. It's a thing in SCC. Like there's a team in EU that just picks it all the time. It's like if the Mori gets like a 2 on the backline, you just insta win the team fight. There's too much like AOE damage and like. You can say, "Oh, just kill the Cthulhu," but then the like one of the other ones is just free casting. You know, like it is really good. Like even if you get an engage off, but with the Afro like Geb comp, I just think they had a horrible ADC pick. I really think if they don't have a Huyi this game, they actually have a chance at winning. I think they had a good idea with the whole draft, like the Susano and the Yanis, like both made a lot of sense and. If they just have an ADC that survives, like who like it would be really hard for the Titans to get a target, but they basically just have a free kill every fight. Like there's a Huyi with like Sylvana is peeling for him, but who cares? There's 0 damage anywhere else, you know. Like Yanis is not gonna help you out. So like I just think it kinda I don't remember when the Huyi was picked, honestly. But I just feel like I'm pretty sure it was last pick. I'm pretty sure they always get Premier at last pick.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he picked Huyi, which was like really confusing. I mean, maybe they know something we don't. Maybe it's like I need Huyi to survive this matchup. But I would just rather pick like Jing Wei. I know it's like boring, but you literally pick Jing, I'm pretty sure they win that game. Like just pick a Heim, Jing, Bog, like something just avoids the set and Nike, and you can actually do stuff in fights. What is Hui gonna do? Like, kind of just get like eaten alive, and I don't know, like obviously, I usually hate when people are like, oh, why are you drafting this and that, because you don't understand it, but obviously they know something we don't. But I do think that kind of fucked their draft really hard. I don't think it was gonna do anything in any fights, like into their comp. Like I am never seeing a Nike pick and telling my ADC like, yeah, pick Hui here. Like it's unplayable. As soon as I see Nikes, like you go in the sky and run away, or you avoid like even something like Cupid is just better. Like you can kind of just like dash away and run because of the movement speed. Like Hui was just not it. And I think like it kind of showed like they got to late game team fights, and I don't think a single fight was close. Like they were doing well in the early mid game, but like Titans never had any pressure on them. They were never gonna lose the game. Like if you watched past like 25 minutes or 20 minutes, it was like they were just kind of coasting. Like they just know they're not gonna die or lose this game. So
Vonny, you're
too much healing and shields, and it's just like there's just too much, and there's not enough damage.
Vonny, your thoughts on the set?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Titans, I think they are who we thought they are. I think the Titans, for my money, are probably the best team right now. But yeah, the Dragons keep drafting for dual lane pressure, which is kind of like not it. I do think going into the last like playoffs, I think purple is one of the more contested like buffs on the map. But that's kind of not the case now. And a lot of times in Cyclone Spain, you saw in the first game, I was actually really surprised. Like, Panda's a sick player, right? One of the best mechanical players ever. And he, like, I'm sure he could play the set, but them taking it as a takeaway from Cyclone was really interesting. Thought it would have been better to just ban out. That didn't work. And then the next answer for it was kind of, a backline Sylvanas pick, and then Hoi for the lane pressure. But typically when Cyclone, because Hoi can like 1v1 a set pretty well, but when Cyclone is 1v1ing these other hunters, it's because they're playing like Izanami and Ram, gods that he can just run at. Like Cyclone's smart enough to not box a Hoi, and he did it. Then it just got late game, and Hoi doesn't do anything to that comp. Afro Geb is so safe. You need a hunter that can contribute to the dive with their team, like Chiron Ram or something. To contribute more damage, because you need it with a team that is that tanky and hard to kill, or you need something that just lives while your team runs it down. Hoi does not meet either of those. All he did was give them pressure that led to absolutely nothing. Then the Titans got late game and just outscaled them super hard.
Yeah. You guys are talking a lot about the Afro and Geb pairing. I think Afro with Set is probably pretty impressive too, especially when you're diving, having the extra.
I think Afro with all their picks, like Afro Geb is really safe, and you have Afro Nike, which is like mid game. Like Afro Nike, like you actually just can't kill the Nike.
Back off and one shots too.
Then Afro set late game is like like a hyper carry assassin with Afros. Like you kind of have the pick, and you have an Achilles is also like almost full damage. Like Afro is kind of chilling that game. Like there's just a really good Afro pick. And honestly, I mean, I always think Afro's OP. Like genuinely think the god is always OP. If you don't need to top 3 it. If this like bottom 2 is a good Afro game, like every mid laner should be able to play that character.
Yeah.
I feel like it shouldn't be like, oh, it's a signature pick for this guy. Like people need to every mid laner should like learn how to play Afro and Hell. Because these gods sometimes will just win you the game. You just get a good Afro or Hell pick, and it's just like you just know the game is over from the draft. Which is why I think it's so hard to like play against Paul right now. Because like you gotta be aware that what if they pick Hell? What if they pick Afro? That's why I think every jungler should also be able to play Daji like any game. Because like what if it's a sick Daji pick? In this meta, she's actually pretty good. Like there's some picks that kind of instant win you the draft. It's like Geb and Kepriak also kind of like so those gods like really contribute a lot to the team. And I don't know. It's gonna be hard to draft against Titans now if Paul actually like they keep playing well with the Afro, but still I do think like Titans are like this is really good meta for them right now, and like I'll be interested to see what happens when they change, because also I feel like I haven't seen much of Cyclone's picks and Layers. Like I know Layers he's played Achilles, but like I feel like he's played like Erlang 80% of the time or 70% of the time. I mean, I'm not complaining. I love that pick. Yeah, Erlang Kama, and then he played like one Achilles and one Rat game, which is like fine, obviously. But like, what's like? I haven't seen any like hyper carry picks of him. Like I know obviously he built Achilles full damage, but I just mean like there's no Susanos, there's no bots, there's no Tsukiyomi, there's no Lokis, which is like I don't know if he like. I'm not saying he can't play them, but I'm curious to see if he can play them or if he's just like saving them or he doesn't think they're that good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see like some of those picks maybe.
Yeah. I think if the Dragons want to succeed in their future matches, like once you get into group stage and even in this last week of play, I think a lot of it does need to come down to their duo, because that was, I'll be honest, it was one of the worst dual lane performances I've seen out of the Dragons in a long time. I mean, game number 2, Panda Cat had 13,000 damage in a 41-minute game.
Yeah.
He didn't get to do anything. Like the 2 Cthulhu's just running him down. There was one fight specifically. It was Fire Giant, like 35 or so minutes in, like pretty deep into the game. And as soon as Benji gets one Cthulhu ultimate, Panda Cat like Bifrost out instantly. Like he didn't even take part in the fight. Like he left, and the rest of his team was just like, I guess we die then. And just there was no peel between the supports not being able to get in there and help out. RDO, not that great support, honestly, especially if you have an Odin as your solo lane. They're already drafting Phantoms, so they're able to get out of these Odin cages. So now you have basically no real peel going up to help you out in the late game. Panda Cat doesn't get to play the game. Sam for Soccer on Nemesis, which is previously like the former, hard counter to Cthulhu. He ults, you ult him, cool, and now we win fight. But now there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
And so Nemesis doesn't
Only
get
one
them.
Them ult got nerfed all as well. Like, and with the build he went, it really wasn't going to do any damage.
To the next set of the week here, another 3-game set between the Solar Scarabs and the Olympus Bolts. Yeah. The Bolts end up getting the win 2-1, but the Scarabs are able to break their sort of game 1 curse that they've been dealing with, I guess, in phase 3 and maybe even in phase 2. And they get the game 1 win, but, the Bolts are the better team, I think. We would all consider that. And, they're able to sort of have a clean win off of solo lane pressure in game 2. And then Scotty does Scotty things with Barracuda, I guess, right? So I think let's start with the Scotty. I don't think we really see any other ADC player pick up Scotty. What is Barrett thinking here? What is Barrett thinking?
He's having fun. Like I asked Venenu about it. I'm like, yo, when Barracuda said grab Scotty for me, what was going through your mind? He's just like, yeah, Barracuda wanted, we trust him, he can play it, and he did fine. I mean, he went for like 5-0 or something like that early on, but I'm not going to call it like a replacement Uller, but like Scotty can do an insane amount of damage. And then you have Calder. So if you don't have something to kill Calder quickly, like it's so hard to deal with that god in the 1v1. And that was one of the few instances where he actually got a lot of potential 1v1. And just like decent peel around the god too. Like Scotty's so hard to play when there's no peel. She kind of falls like a Muzen Cobb, where she just doesn't have mobility. Her primary CC is a slow and then a root, but you have to throw Calder to do it. So now you lose that safety of Calder. I don't know. I think the god does a lot of damage, but outside of that, it really just depends on the team that you draft around it.
Yeah, I really think she is underrated though. I think like you just can't play her like a traditional ADC. You just need to like man up and just get in on the jungler, get on their ADC, and just go in and accept your death with honor. Like they're not gonna play like AMC can kind of like chill in the background, do a lot of damage. You can't play Scotty like that. And I think it was like Barrow was like, you get to pick who for the 1v1. I'll just pick Scotty. You can't really 1v. You can 1v1 Scotty as Yi, but it's so risky.
It's pretty dangerous. Her room for error is way higher than yours.
Yeah. Like she could always just kind of get out at the end of the day. Like if she really wants, she gets really fast with her 3. I mean, I do think that game. Like I remember the game 2. Like because I was like, oh, maybe Scotty's gonna win this, and then they went game 2. SOT's feeling himself. He's like, give me that secure me solo. And like the thing is, SOT either pops up for these picks, like just carries the game, or he just feeds his brains out, which is what he did that game. Like he's done that with Susano before, and like he did it again this set. Like I just feel like you're picking this pick. I think it's awful into the comp, honestly. Like
he was 0-4 in like 10 minutes game.
I think it's awful into Artio first of all. Like you don't want to pick an assassin into a god like Artio. Like you're just gonna get fucked in lane. But that's not why he got fucked. They had a level 3 fight, and they got double killed in solo, which is like really bad start for them, especially when against a god like Artio. I just feel like you do not want to gank an Artio. Like anyways, like it's just like the risk versus reward there, in my opinion, is like not in their favor. And he kind of did nothing that whole game. Like he was kind of just shut down. Like the whole game. That game was like kind of just free. I feel like for the Bolts from there. Like I don't really think Scarabs like had a good team fight or anything. It was kind of just like, oh well, we tried kind of thing. Like the comp like relied on Scream initiating because they have a Kepri, and As a jungler, when you're behind, it's so hard to do that, especially against a comp with like Tiamat Artio. Like Tiamat's one of the hardest mages to kill. So I do love when like solo laners kind of like pick other picks, but I feel like you gotta like be like really smart with how you like drafting them and like how you actually go into the game where like make sure like get the items you need and then start fighting around. Like you don't want to fight in solo against R2 anyways. Like I just think it was kind of a meh gank that fucked the game for them.
Sure, sure.
But they really value that Tsukiyomi though. Like I'm pretty sure they just pick it like every game and usually Scream takes it, but they flex it, I guess.
Well, and also I think they probably got enamored with it because of the disco. I think their combo, you know, we mentioned Disco King Arthur, but I think sort of that same method applies to Disco and Tsukiyomi, right? Like if you're able to sort of play the early game well in the solo lane with Tsukiyomi, you maybe can use that Disco passive to just keep the pressure on. But I think, like you said, maybe not the best thing to do into a Guardian like Artio.
I mean, I also think it doesn't make sense. If you're going to have a Kepri support, you cannot have a Tsukiyomi solo. Like, who's going to be your frontline in the lane? You have a Tsukiyomi, a Bats, and a Kepri. And it's just like, I mean, sure, he's going to be like, oh, just give it to Tsukiyomi, fuck it, like, I'll take it. And it's like, sure, you can do that, but you got to think about, like, how the comp is going to feel like in the late game. And it was like, you shouldn't put that much pressure on your jungler to find an initiation. And this meta especially, I think jungle is way too important to, like, just put them, like, oh, just go initiate and die. Like, I feel like you're always just going to lose if you play like that. You're going to have, like, end up having no damage in the team fight. Especially when there's a Tiamat on the other side. Like, she's just not going to die. I don't know if Ven died, but I doubt that he died. Like, just looking at the comp, no way that he ended up
He
dying.
died one time in 2 games that he had Tiamat. So, that's
he
your
went
answer.
2-0 and then 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, like, Tiamat is, like, OP, right? And then everyone was like, oh, there's so many other OP picks, you know. Maybe Tiamat's fine. And I feel like every time she's open, she does super well, so maybe she should just be permabanned again. As a jungler, whenever I play against her, I'm like, I don't know how to kill her, man. Like, if you have good positioning, it's like she has the instant jump back. Obviously, some builds can cancel it, but like, she can get a good ult, and she just has so much pressure as well. Like, she's not really weak. She has like a lot of different like playstyles she can do. Like, I don't see a weakness in her really, unless you just don't like her, which is fair enough. But hopefully I don't think she's getting nerfed soon because she got nerfed already a little bit.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll see how she does in the group stage, and maybe that will warrant another nerf.
Yeah. Jmac, Vonny, any thoughts on this set here?
Actually, none at all. Except yes, the Scarabs lost, but rejoice because Bobby won on your mojo.
That's true.
all that matters.
Bobby did win on Yamoja. That is the highlight of that. I'm just going to say it here. How is it that the Scarabs have gone to 3 games every single set against every single team except the Warriors?
Yeah, I don't know.
They went to 3 against the Valks and 3 against every other team, and they've got one more top 5 to do it against, which is the Titans. That's how they've gone to 3 games every single set. Just win one, man. Just one. I just want to see you win one.
I just wish the way they lost, like, I feel like the games they lose, it doesn't really look like that close. I'm not really sure what happens. I don't know if it's like a draft issue. Like, I think they were doing well in the last game, but like when it get to team fights like really late in the game, it's like they kind of just like misplay once, and after that, I feel like it's just over from there. Like there's like they don't really have like any good Phoenix defenses, or like they never lose an FG and then like come defend the next one and like come back. I don't know if that's like mental or just like maybe the comps are like just bad from behind. Because I remember, like, in the game 3, they were doing pretty well. They lost the fight at FG, they lost FG, and then they just lost the game. Like, I don't think there was even another FG.
Yeah.
And, you want to give yourself, like, these, like, all right, just, like, have a solid Phoenix defense. If we lose the Phoenix, it's fine. You don't lose a game of 1 Phoenix. You only lose the game, really, if it's, like, EFG, 1 Phoenix down. Then it's, like, okay, that is really bad, because, like, you can't defend 1v1s, maybe, and stuff like that. They just got to work on that, like, kind of mitigate their losses, like, the early game, like, fuck-ups in the mid-game, like, oh, you lost FG, okay, like, just have a solid defense kind of thing.
Do you feel maybe that they are too reliant on Scream to set up late game initiations in these team fights? And, to be honest, with how much damage is in the game now, it kind of, I think, feels bad for your jungler to be the one setting up that late game team fight, because in all likelihood, they're probably going to get blown up by a mage ult, right?
It's really bad. Like, I think jungle is way too important right now. I think in the like earlier meta with Gilgamesh, Osiris, Erlang, fair enough, he got them to initiate. I think right now jungle is too important. Like they do too much damage. They get one shot too easily as well. You want them to like, I feel like you should play the game to make your jungler have a good game. In my opinion, like you should play every team fight to make sure your jungler has like a good positioning, good like chance to like clean up the fight. Like if you have your jungler engaged, it's not gonna be ideal. I do think, like when Bobby did play the R2, he did try to like do that, create space and engage and stuff, which he was doing, but he was just like R2 like was really far behind. He was kind of just like dying.
Yeah.
So it was kind of rough that game. But as long as they realize that they kind of need to do that, then yeah, like I don't like that's the thing with Kepri. You pick Kepri, you should expect you're gonna have some problems initiating, and I feel like you need a soul laner that's gonna. Obviously, that's Tsukuyomi. They probably realize now, like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. Like, it was bad. They need to like make sure either Bobby engages or SOT in the late game. I think don't rely on Scream. I just think it makes the game like way too hard for him.
Yeah. It was just too valuable for them to be the ones to have to throw their life away right in the start of a fight.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to mention here is in Game 3, we see Haddix pull out the Zhang Kui with the Mannequin Scepter, I guess. A bit of a cheese strat here. You know, we saw Zhang Kui early on, I think, near the end of Phase 1, when there were the vines in the jungle, right? Because of the easy clear a little bit. There was, you know, some prioritization of that. Why do you think Haddix is sort of going back to Zhang Kui here?
There was like no one that could like truly kill that god. You have an RDO that's going to have some peel. You have a Nike who will do some damage, but there wasn't anybody to just like one-shot that god.
Yeah.
And because of that, he can just build like pseudo tanky and just W key at them. And he's got like this just infinite space created in front of him. I mean, you get a like how much better frontline can you get than having a Yamoja who can just separate any fight?
True.
And then you just don't ever have to worry about anything. Like everybody's dealing with like Barracuda and what damage he can put out, which is a ton of damage, but then Haddix can just like leisurely walk in. And also he got to go Blink, which is like the only thing that makes Zhang Kui actually good is Blink.
Yeah, if you play John without Blink, you shouldn't be playing him. It's just such a waste. Like if you say like, oh, I can kill frontline with this god, like why are you playing Zhong then? Like I know he does a lot of damage, but like it's not the god. Like I hate when people pick Zhong and like, yo, like I'll just hit frontline. Like you go Blink, you Blink on the backline. Create space for the team, and Haddix did it well. He was like dying every fight, but that's kind of what you want to do with Zhong. Like, if you're like playing Zhong and you have like 0 deaths, you either stomp the game or you misplay. Like, you really want to be getting in there and creating space for the team. I mean, I don't know about the mannequin. He's probably just like, oh, maybe it's good because does it double proc on like the
so it technically, because it's stacking based, it will double stack the passive of it in one hit. Or if you had 2 separate minions and each of those minions are affected by it.
Yeah, I just don't think he needs it. I think my god has so much pressure in lane anyways. Just clear the wave and you're fine. Like, just have a good late game item for you. Maybe he thought Hidden Blade is like going to be really good for him or something. But I'm pretty sure like I'd rather have Warriors, what's it called? Warriors Axe
and the Sundering Axe or something.
The Sundering Axe. Yeah, I'd rather have Sundering Axe late game, or I'd rather have Bumba's Hammer. I don't have anything honestly. Like I don't. Mannequin is
or Blood Soaked.
Yeah, like I just don't think Mannequin's it really. Like, but I mean, he's probably experimenting and.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't even finish it out. He just had it as a tier 1 the whole way. So
yeah, you know, just like having fun. Like, oh, let's try this. Like, try to get a kill in lane, maybe catch him off guard or something.
Sure. Vonny, I know you wanted to say something there.
Yeah, about the Zhang Kui. I think so into Nike in particular, I think it might actually be a decent matchup. Because she really, really likes to rush Mystical Mel. And against the Zong, if you're rushing Mystical, he can obviously pressure you a lot because he's magical. Also, Nike gets a lot of her pressure through just outright clear speed. She just rins the wave, doesn't really care about what happens after that. But obviously the way Zong can space around his front minions, like she'll have to play from her own archer. She realistically can never win the entire wave if the Zong knows what he's doing. She also doesn't have control to lock him down or gank him really well because he is slow and knock-up immune in his ult. And also, I think into Morgan Le Fay, Suki Zong just blinks and runs at them.
Yeah.
But I think I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit more Zong, at least experimentation with it, because I do think into Nike, also with Sunder being nerfed as well, he can't just get Sunder blown up. I think Zong might actually be.
I honestly think that god is just really underplayed in general. Like I really do think he's such a good character to pick in solo, and even in mid some games he's just like when Dodgers was playing it, he made it look like such a sick mid pick. Like I really do think you can pick this god way more often, but I don't think anyone likes to play him other than Fine OK. Like he kind of picks it a lot, but I doubt he even likes to play it. Like,
Sure.
but yeah, like the mystical male is a really good point. Like, I feel like Nike without mystical, she's so much less scary in the early mid game. You kind of just like don't care about her at all. Like, as a jungler, I'd probably be spending a lot of my time over that side because she has like no CC that annoys you really. Like, sure, she has a slow, but if you're the one going on her, like she kind of just becomes like a meat shield. You know, you kind of just hit her and don't care about the damage you take. So actually, kind of makes sense. Maybe we'll see like a counter pick more. But like I do want to see like someone picks Nike solo, like you just pick like a mage and just like try to fuck her in the early game, like
Yeah.
try to like get a lead, like kind of push her out of the lane. Like normally does that. Like Zhong is because it's like really easy with Zhong. He's like considered a solo laner, but I want to see like other mage picks maybe, but maybe in a different Smite timeline we'll
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next set of the week. The Oni Warriors versus the Valhalla Valkyries. Another 3-game set here. The Valks are able to, I think, take game 2 off of their sort of this new comp that seems to be working for them with the Chang'e mid. But maybe the Onis might have missed out on switching gods. We saw Dardes take on her into the mid lane that second game, and Vote played Tiamat in the ADC. You know, one thing I think that really stood out to me in this Oni set is how comfortable Dardes, even on ping, is kind of looking on the Morgan. He seems to be something that he's been leaning on recently.
He's just picking it every game, yeah.
Yeah,
he literally picks it every game it's open, like first pick, I'm pretty sure. Like
Yeah.
he just wants to make plays with the character, and he's just like, I know he does hit it with ping. Like I remember he talked to me about it. Like he wants to play Morgan, and he wants to play Disco and a lot of pace, and it's like the ping is fucking him. But I think he's just moved on from that. He's just gonna play whatever.
Yeah.
And like worry about the ping lane, which I really wish what Valks would do. I really do think like their picks are they like, especially Johnny. I feel like that every pick he plays is like a pick that's like, oh, I don't want to get fucked by ping, but I feel like it's impacting what he's doing in like the Nemesis into Ravana, Morgan, Yemoja. Like I don't know what Nemesis is doing there. Like why do you have Nemesis into Yemoja and Ravana and Morgan? I like it's like I just feel like kind of playing scared to lose or being scared to look bad. Like you're not gonna win. I just wish it'd go all out. Like and like game 2 they went for like that Chang'e circuit, which is like obviously really good for them. But I feel like when they don't get like a comp like that, it feels so hard for them to win. But they did kind of punish Dodge's pick. Like, oh no, it's not a good mid pick right now. Dodge was just feeling himself really. Like it's probably like get you mad, and he was like, I don't want to play this pick, man. Then Vo was just like, yeah, just give it to me. I'll take it.
Look at those
like, really?
transfers, chalk. Like
yeah, like they're just feeling themselves a bit, you know.
Yeah.
Got a bit beat. I don't think they're really winning that game at all. Even though, like, honestly, it was so sloppy from Valk's at FG. Like they spend so much time around FG, and they just don't know what to do. Like they like so lost around the actual fire. Like they don't know how to do it.
I don't think they expected to have that lead.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
not.
like they have a comp that's not good at killing FG. Like you should realize you have a Boom Spear Circuit. Like you can do the FG if Circuit hits it. But you don't want to do that because you wanted to blink in, and they kind of just stood around. They couldn't get a pick. They eventually ended up inting, but only did like end up throwing it again, and they end up getting the FG and ending off it. Like honestly, it was really weird how I don't know if you guys remember, like they were at Phoenix and Oni just lost like 2 Phoenixes for free. Basically, they lost the mid Phoenix 2v1, then they chased in dual lane, then they lost the solo Phoenix like 2v0. There was no one there. Like I think it would have been really hard for Valkyries to actually siege and get Phoenixes, but Titans kind of like not Titans. I mean, well, it's kind of just like got bored and they're like, let's fight, and they lost the game really weirdly. But then they cleaned it up game 3 again.
Yeah.
Like you see Johnny again picked Fenrir, and I mean you can't tell me Fenrir is a good pick into the comp there. Like he's really forcing himself to play these picks, and it's like I know like his ping is worse from Serbia, but. Wait, Croatia, not Serbia. Sorry, but yeah, like it's not good. I think just pick the Susano if you want to pick it. Pick the Bats if you want to pick it, and just suffer the pain. But at least have like a actual good comp. You can blame it on the ping when you lose, but when you lose like that, I feel like you just blame it on the comp is bad. It's like I can't do anything this game with Fenrir. Like what am I gonna do? Like jump on Morgan? Like that's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Jump and get one shot by everyone in their comp is like I just don't think it's a good Fenrir meta anyways, and. He probably knows it. I just wish they'd like realize it and like move on from it. Like, because it's been happening the whole phase, and it's been happening the whole. Yeah, because I'm sure he's picking in scrims, like picking Daji and Susano and Tsukiyomi and stuff, and Bastet, and like playing all these picks. but then he's never going to pick it in SPL. So like, what's the point? It's like kind of wasted practice.
Any thoughts on you guys about the Oni Warriors who did end up winning this game? Is there something to glean from their victories here?
No, I think just a slight touch on draft. Game 3, I think like Cherry said, they got a bit ahead of themselves. Game 2, they were feeling themselves. We'll push out the TL, but yes, don't ever let anybody get Morgan and Cthulhu together.
Yeah, no.
It's just like that is just ridiculous.
The funny thing is
they
they
have fun.
They didn't even really use the double Cthulhu comp much at all. They mostly used it. I can't even remember what they were I don't even remember what Dartus was even transforming into in game 3, but like they rarely used like the double Cthulhu comp. I think it was mostly like double Erlong or double Terra or something like that. But yeah, no, you just can't give that comp away.
Yeah, I mean Dartus had kind of like 2 sick options. This 9-kill Cthulhu. Yeah. And it's like the two of the best options, and even like Xing Chen, if he's a solo Xing Chen, it'd be good, but obviously support us behind. You kind of have like a lot of good options. Like even Fenrir in some situations could be sick, if you're getting a free pick. But like Dartus had a really good Morgan game, and I don't know, Morgan's always kind of good. I feel like actually Morgan as well is one of those like broken picks when it comes to real tournaments because it's so hard to play against when you get to late game. Like it's really up to the Morgan, right? If she gets a good initiation, you kind of just insta win the fight. If the Morgan gets a stun and a 2-on one of the 3 carries, you should just insta win the team fight. It's like because you're getting someone low and then you turn into a tank, and then the problem in my opinion playing as Morgan is like the enemy jungler has nothing to do. There's like 2 Cthulhus running at you, and then there's an Erlang. Sure, he's not the easiest. He's not like that hard to kill, but he's still Erlang. Like it's not like a Susano, And then there's an ADC, sure, that's probably like you can't even see, like he's so far back, or he's like ulting in with everyone. Like you don't want to as a jungler like kind of like jump into all that unless you're like bots. Yeah, and it's kind of maybe bots should be played more every time. It's like in this meta, it's like bots could be sick here. Like one of the few jungler picks that are AOE. Like maybe you should see him more. Tsukiyomi a little bit as well with the 3, but not really. Like I feel like other than bots, Susano and Thor. There's a lot of junglers that have good AoE, and even Thor, you have to be ulting. So, Bats might be. And if people actually think of like what junglers are like struggling with, maybe he'll be picked more. We'll see.
Yeah, I think this set can just be summed up to like the Warriors were just getting cute in game number 2 and lost because like game 1 was a beatdown, game 3 was a beatdown. Like, sure they were a little bit longer of games, but like it was never really that close. I mean, game 3 was like almost 20k gold deficit by the end, and then it was like 16 or 15k in game 1. So
I just think the comps weren't close. Like I swear, if I'm Cube with that game, I'm like, we're playing against a Nemesis and a defender that's gonna like super fall off into our comp as well. Like they're probably just always confident they're gonna win that game. Like regardless. Sure. So I even when they weren't like that far ahead, like in game 1 and 3, I just think they knew they were gonna win, so the game didn't feel that close.
Any final thoughts from you guys about this set?
Valkyries need to man up. Can't blame it on ping,
Sure.
The final
I want to see them miss an ability, Like I want to see Johnny like fuck up an ability and be like, "Fuck, man, ping diff," And that's fine. Like that happened to Emma, right? He's playing he like dropped a kill on Jake because of ping. That will happen. Like if your ADC can play hunters, like junglers can, they'll survive.
All right, let's move on to the last set of the week. I think the Smite Pro people called this the set of the week, right? The Titans versus the Atlanta's Leviathans. Again, another 3-game set here that the Titans end up winning 2-1. On a couple cringe picks. Sure. But here
we really... they had an identical comp, didn't they? They had like an identical comp for one of the earlier sets. Like where they had like the Afro. Actually, they had an Achilles instead, but they had like Camelot's Afro Geb set again and Cthulhu. Like instead of the Cthulhu's Nike, which is like the same thing, just an unkillable like solo leader. And like it was so hard for Leviathans to do anything that game.
The big point I want to bring up is just how slow these games felt. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep during each of these games.
I hate it so much.
25 minutes. First blood, game number Game number 2, it was first blood and then 25 minutes of nothing.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. I think Jithan's tweet that he put out was the best thing of it. He just tweeted out, "Guys, help. It's 25 minutes and I have one highlight so far."
Yeah, I mean, even game 1, it was like 9-1 in 25
Yeah.
minutes.
Mhm.
Like, it's just not fun to watch. Also, this Gilgamesh pick is criminal. I actually like almost puked when I saw it. You're playing against an Afro, a Geb, and a Set, and a Camelot, and then you pick a Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And like, I don't understand. I mean, the idea, I assuming, is to just like jump ult and jump in and like just start the fight, but Afro's not gonna die.
Mm.
Afro's not gonna die to a Nike Savannah's Gilgamesh. Like, it's actually, it was so sad to see. Like, you have to go like a full damage hypercarry jungler there. Like, you have to go,
Yeah.
because you know this game is young. Like, they have an Afro Gab. You're either trying to stomp them early, then Gilgamesh is not it. You know, they don't have enough to stomp them early with Gilgamesh. Or you just go match their late game and like. You like just pick your Merc, even though it's not the best Merc game. You did have way better chances playing a Merc this game than Gilgamesh. I don't understand it. Apparently, is the only one that's still trying to make Gilgamesh work, and like they won with it because they're a good team. But like, are you winning because of the pick? Like, why is Gilgamesh good right now? Like, why would he be good under these junglers? Like, when I saw him play, I was like, maybe I should try it. Maybe he's onto something. I mean, he's not dumb. But I still don't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense, especially into get Afro like Set. I just feel like you don't have enough damage to kill these people.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the game. I think they had like one kill. Like, I'm sure they after that game they were like, yeah, maybe let's not do that again.
Yeah.
Because that was like not even close. Like, but I'm pretty sure he picked it game 2 anyways.
Yeah, they picked it game 2, and it's because they lacked that Geb in game number 2. Like, that was a lot of what caused the Titans to kind of fall, because the Cthulhu Afro is good, and then you have whatever hyper carry you want to throw the Afro on.
Mhm.
But without that extra level of protection for liner or for the Afro, she does just kind of die. And going this Kuzumbo just didn't work because Aurora couldn't peel for anybody, and then he would try and get in the back line, and then he'd just get destroyed when he walked back there.
Mm-hmm.
So like game 2, the comp kind of fell apart. Like, they still had the Cthulhu Afro set, but they didn't have an extra frontline presence or any kind of extra additional peel. Kuzumbo's okay, but he does, and he also went like Thorns. There was no team fight relics at all in game number 2 for the Titans. It was double Thorns, triple Blink,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
beads, and then beads and Aegis. Like that doesn't really help that team at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
I honestly think they just lost the game because they fucked up though. Like, I think Titans win that game if they. I remember it was just an even game, a really boring game. It was like 1-0, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then they got baited by Jorkor. They got like instant one shot by TM. It was like an Arceus run into like the Tiamat combo. And like they had a Afro link to an Erlang, and Afro didn't even get to ult. Like, it was just like an instant one shot. Like, Paul didn't even realize that that Leo's got one shot, and then he just like insta lost the fight. Like, and even with them getting that one shot, like Phantom still died. Like, all he did that fight, like genuinely, he like ulted and jumped on Paul, and then he just died to like set damage. Like I'm not saying like, oh, like this is so bad. Like, they won the game, but I really think they kind of got overshadowed by like what actually happened. Like, that Gilgamesh had like there was such a boring game. Like, I feel like if he's playing another pick, he can actually try and make plays and stuff. But I'm pretty sure he had like 2k damage before going into that fight.
Sure.
There's like nothing is happening. Like, you don't have any place to make with the Gilgamesh into that comp. But they won the game, so it doesn't matter. They won the FC fight. They won. They got the FC and they had a Phoenix Siege and they just like insta won the game. I'm pretty sure. Like, they got the Phoenix and then there was like a free FC into like just the end.
Vonny,
Yeah,
I wanted to hear your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, so going into the game 1, I think that it's been interesting seeing how all these different teams like the handle Cyclone Spin set.
Mm-hmm.
We saw the Dragons like take it away. I think the Leviathans have had the best strategy into it so far, and that's something that Cherry mentioned earlier. Is you just pick something like Heim
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't really have to fight it. Set can't really all in or go on a Heim. He just gets out too easily. They also had Jing Shang to handle it. RDO Cripple as well. Is really, really good into it. So you essentially have like 2 Guardians that have positive matchups into set, as well as a Hunter that doesn't threaten him. And when you factor that in with as good as Afro is at what she does, and she does do like damage, but she's not a traditional mage that contributes
Right.
damage to dive like other mages. So if the set ADC isn't threatening their team, and Paul can't facilitate that on the Afro. It's kind of just all neutralized. And
Mm-hmm.
going into game two, I think the adjustment that the Titans made was like, yeah, Leviathans went for the circuit into it, which on paper is good, but this time they didn't have Set, they had Uller.
Mm-hmm.
And Aurora on Ganesh, like I don't think Ganesh is a crazy sick god, but with what they wanted to do with that draft, I thought it was sick. Like into a blink first or Ket Erlong, Ganesh just completely just like shuts down everything they want to do diving the Afro.
Right.
He also can start a dive really easy for Camelot or Cthulhu with
Mm-hmm.
his ult, but he didn't even have to do anything like that. The Leviathans were literally just sleeping that entire game. Like I don't know,
Uh,
they were just
I think they have no idea playing into Afro. I remember that we
Mhm.
had the same thing last year, where it's like people don't know how to play into this god. They don't. So Ket is not a good pick into Afro. Like
Yeah.
it's one of the worst assassins you can pick. I know it was in support, but still, you need to pick like why like people not picking like Cabrakan into Afro. You need to pick like mages that can hit the Afro from like far away. Or you need to pick assassins that can one shot the Afro. But like Phantom's picking Gilgamesh and Erling, which are both not good pickings after, makes it so easy for her to have a good ult. It's like everything is so predictable. You need like instant one shot. You need like a lot of damage, and I feel like people are like missing the mark here. Like they don't really it's just like confusing. I think it's obviously a very character that doesn't rarely gets played. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't
Paul
think
played her
like
three times.
Yeah.
yeah, they played all three games that set. She's good. I think like you can 100% win games even if people pick like Susano into it or like Baka or Merc or whatever. Like, but I think people need to pick those gods if they want to try and win. You can
Yeah.
pick early and hope to win, but if you're not getting early leads, which Leviathans are just not doing in any of the games, like they can't.
No.
I don't know if they can't or they don't want to. They'll try and they're not getting the leads. Just don't try to play these gods. Like Penham can play Susano. Like I don't know why he doesn't just pick Susano.
Mhm.
I
It's
think
like
that's
really
the trap
confusing to me.
too, because like Erlong, Jungle, and Circuit support. Because when people pick Afro, the first thing you think is like
Oh,
pressure,
let's
right?
fuck her early. But
Which
Afro's
Circuit
need to
is
embed early.
yeah,
Like that's the
and
thing. Afro
then
can just fight, and then you have a
Enzigo,
guy
but
Mesha.
it just
It's
like the point you made was true. It's so easy to get a good ult onto what they want to do with you. Like Erlong in Circuit CC is super predictable, but Susano pool threes you like you have to ult the Storm Kata, you have to ult Typhoon. Like it's so much more harder to play against, and she has to think way more compared to an Erlong Blink Taunt. You can unless you're playing on ping, like at this professional level, most of these guys can Afro ult that or a Circuit ult, and
Mm.
now what
Yeah.
do they really contribute to actually killing her? Like not much at all.
Ja-
It's just like it's just a bait, and Caster's always kind of mentioned it. Maybe not anymore. I think Aggro now is like, no, there's not a good matchup because like I always got like annoyed when people were like, oh man, they picking the Circuit to counter the Afro. And I know like happened to us so much last year. We'd pick Afro like first pick, people would picking Afro, and then people would pick the Circuit jungle, and the game would be just like these. It would just be like 4-0 at like 20 minutes, and we're just winning the game, and we just know that we're not gonna die because it's so easy for us to play the game. Hopefully, people stop doing it. Even in support, it's not good. You need something harder to play, and Suket is too easy. Like unless you're like killing your level 2 and 3 in snowballing, which is not gonna happen in SPL.
Do you guys feel as if, this last set of the week, sort of the really slow pacing of the games, especially game three, with there's total of like 6 kills, is this sort of the full cumulative effect of this jungle buff, sort of playing out, right? Like at first, there's just a lot of kills in this weekend in the SPL games, and then by the time Sunday rolls around, it's just wait, and go for a late game team fight. Is that because of the burst that the jungle item buffs have given to junglers, or is this more of the effect of Afro, you think, in this set? Or what do you think maybe caused the games to really be slow in this set?
I think it's more of the Afro. I think Cherry hit the nail on the head when he said people just don't. I don't think people really know how to play against the like quote unquote cringe comps right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone just gets Mori Cthulhu, like what do you really do? Like you just can't. It's smite on training wheels for
Mhm.
them. The room for error is too large. There's not really much counterplay. And then if they get something like Afro Kema and stuff like that, these teams just don't really know how to play against that god. Like Afro's a god who I feel like historically has only ever been regulated through like balance. But
Mm.
even then, I think she's always good. A lot of gods come in and out of meta. Like familiarity is a legitimate thing that contributes to how well a god performs. When people
Right.
get more used to playing against the god and its counters, it gets worse. But I feel like that never happens with Afro. People see this god, they get frustrated, and they just say, "I don't." They just complain, and it gets nerfed, and then that's how Afro gets like neutralized. But
Mm-hmm.
the Titans are in a position right now to where I think there's so much you have to ban from them. Like Set is going to be a crazy pick for them because we know layers can pop off on it, but Cyclone it now has the ability to be flexed to him. The Cthulhu and Ardio is something you don't want Benji to be getting. A lot of teams still ban Ares from Aurora.
Yeah.
You also have Geb, which is a really big pick, and Paul has been going absolutely nuclear on Afro and Morgan, but you still don't want the guy to get Tiamat or anything like that.
Or
And
even
so I
Raijin,
think this,
right?
yeah, so I think this
Yeah.
Titans team is going to be one that's really, really difficult to draft against going into these playoffs for teams. I wouldn't be surprised if they just straight out repeat it.
This week, I had the pleasure of sitting down with the solo laner from the Camelot Kings, my good friend Harry Cummings Variety, as you may know him, to talk about Phase 2 and Phase 1, and maybe look forward to Worlds as well. Check it out. Hey guys, I'm here with Variety, the solo laner for the Camelot Kings, to talk a little bit about Phase 2 and Phase 3, and maybe look at the Worlds a little bit as well, and just pick his brain on how he feels about Smite and the SPL on the whole, too. So I was looking through the standings for Phase 2. You guys are basically, the top of the standings, and we're winning quite a bit in Phase 2. What do you sort of attribute that to? Is there anything specific happening in the team environment that you feel like maybe contributed to your great run during the phase in Phase 2?
Team environment wise, as in terms of personality, at least, I'd say it's probably just the fact that we all get on very well. We're good friends. We can kind of talk about anything. We can call out each other without people getting like salty or annoyed or upset. So I think that's a big factor in why we were so well and so dominant in phase one, was just the fact that all our issues that we had as a team could get sorted pretty quickly, just based off the fact that we can talk to each other without having to go into in-depth arguments and people getting defensive and
Mm-hmm.
that type of stuff.
Yeah. Do you what was there anything maybe happening strategy wise that you think helped you guys in Phase 2 either, or was it just playing to sort of everyone playing to their abilities?
I think it was a bit of both. I think everyone was just playing really well. I think Genetics especially, he was having an absolute amazing phase two.
Mm-hmm.
And our backline is of Netroid and Big Man. I think it's probably the best backline in the SPL. So I think with Sam playing extremely well and being able to peel for them two guys specifically just gives us like a really good chance and just a really good team in general of winning a lot of games. Meta wise, I'd say Twig probably had the best grasp on the meta in general. Of like he was like the first one to bring out Osiris jungle,
Mm-hmm.
Gilgamesh jungle, them
Yeah.
type of junglers. So I think that kind of gave us a bit of a head start because I'm pretty sure phase two was when Boots was removed, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Or at least around there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he got managed to get us pretty ahead on the meta in that mindset of tank jungle running around, building mannequins and everything. And yeah, he was probably most integral part to us getting first was his grasp on the jungle meta and being able to play that the way he wants to play.
Sure. How impressed have you been with Genetics and Big Man Tings, given that they're sort of playing on Bing in England and things like that? Have they impressed you at all? Sort of being able to, still hit a lot of the shots that they're, and like be useful in the team fights. I feel like Big Man Ting has really popped off in a lot of these team fights and has really been sort of doing a lot of damage and doing a lot of work in these games. Has that impressed you guys at
Yep.
all? Being over here, with the low ping.
Yeah, of course. It's seeing how well they're playing right now. It just makes me even more excited when they finally get here. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be here super soon.
Yeah.
I think they have the visa appointments to get the actual stamp in their passport on the 19th of October. So they should be here within like
Oh
start of
man,
early November,
that's very
end of
soon.
October, early November. So yeah, I think we're all very excited to see them, have them come down to the house, and finally get to chill with them. And obviously, them being on lower ping will obviously hopefully make them play even better. Like Sam, I think phase 2 and the phase 1, a lot of teams respected a lot of his picks. Like his Ymir was being banned all the time. Now it's transitioned to like Kepi being banned all the time, Terra being banned or picked away. I think that just goes to show that what a great player he really is, and he's been waiting to come to the SPL for a long time.
He has,
And
yeah.
now that he's finished university, he's finally got his chance to come. I think he's really showed that like he deserves to be here, and he's like one of the top supports. And that's for big man. That guy, he plays mages. He built Soul Reaver. Like, don't give him any credit. No credit goes to him. He built Soul Reaver, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah, it's gotta also at least just be a big confidence boost, right? That you're playing this well with some people sort of maybe not in the best of circumstances, right? So when they come over,
Yeah.
it's probably, there's maybe a bit more to sort of get out of the team, right?
Yeah,
Another
exactly.
level
I
maybe
think.
to find.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you can compare us, because right now we're like the top 4 is considered us, Bolts, Dragons, Leviathans, and if you look at all them teams, we're the only team with players playing on ping.
Mhm.
And I think the rest of the teams, like the Warriors, are struggling. The Valks are obviously struggling because they have 5 players rather than 2.
Yeah.
So I kind of don't really include them. But yeah, just teams who have like ping players that they tend to be struggling. But I think we've shown that like we're a consistent top team and we can pretty much beat anyone on any day.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the last team I think that you missed on that list is the Tartarus Titans, and I think have to ask
Hmm.
you a little bit about the Phase 2 playoffs and their sort of I think very surprise run. A lot of people have felt that they're more of a land team, but we've sort of seen a little bit in Phase 3 that they're pulling it off in the phase as well. Is that another team maybe that's in the mix for some of this postseason stuff or doing well in group stages and playoffs and things like that?
Yeah, I think they just have naturally good land players like Cyclone. Paul, if you watch like people who've watched the past 2 worlds know what Paul is like at LAN.
Yeah,
Like he's an
yeah,
absolute monster. Benji's always performing at LAN. Aurora's been up and down, but obviously he's won worlds before, so he could just have a really good LAN as well. I think Lace is the only anomaly in that team. He hasn't really well, he's played on Xbox, but I don't think it's kind of the same. Maybe he doesn't get nerves as much because
hmm
of the Xbox experience, but
right.
in terms of PC playing against better players in general, it might affect him. But
Yeah.
yeah. As for the phase 2 LAN that we
Mhm.
had against them, personally think that they had the best grasp on the meta out of every team.
Mm.
And I also just think that the stars aligned in like a way that layers joined. They had like the honeymoon phase. The meta started the meta suited them really, really well. And yeah, I think that's probably the biggest factor is like the honeymoon phase plus the meta. I'd be very surprised if they continue to like be dominant and, win this playoffs or even win worlds. I would be very surprised if that happened, but who knows? Maybe
Sure,
it could.
sure. Maybe more specific to your team, the Camelot Kings. Were there any maybe lessons that you guys learned from the Phase 2 playoffs? Because I feel like the lands are always just a little bit more important. A bit more pressure on. It's sort of a test for how worlds, like a test run of how worlds might go, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys sort of were able to gain from the unfortunate loss?
Um I think it was more of just well, firstly, it was like genetics is first major, like not major, but like you know what I mean, like big,
Mm-hmm.
like LAN event, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So I think it was important for him to get like that first one out the way because obviously phase 1 we kind of choked and didn't make it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it was big for him to get that one out the way, just for him personally. But as a team, I'd say we kind of just stepped up our game in general across the board. Like we phase 2, honestly, if you've seen our phase 2 scrims, you would think we would finish 8th in the
Mm-hmm.
phase 2 because they were just so bad. But we just realized, we just basically said as a team, like, we need to like cut this crap out and, really focus because we can't just like next phase, is the most important one, and we can't just keep messing around and
Mm-hmm.
just trolling scrims and inting and just like having fun, I guess. So yeah, I think just in general, we kind of just picked it up as a team, like people more attentive in scrims, more what's the word? Like they have more input in scrims, like generally, because like Big Man and Netrio are kind of like just quiet people, and they kind of just let me, Biggie, Sam, and Twig do like all the talking and all the prep and all the thinking about the game, and they kind of just sit there and just let us speak for them rather than them like speaking for themselves. Like not giving that much input
Mhm.
on the gods they want to play or what they think is good in the meta, what they want us to play to facilitate them and like be better players in general. So yeah, I wouldn't say there was a major lesson learned. It was more just like a slap in the face and just a bigger wake up call to like take it more serious.
Sure, sure. Well, I want to. It's a good segue to maybe start talking about phase three a little bit. You guys doing pretty strong as well in this first, sort of the first round robin here before the group stages. I think you guys are 4-2, right, in the standings. So, a couple of
Yeah.
unfortunate losses. Has anything sort of surprised you in phase three? I know there's been sort of a pretty big meta shift with the new patch. A lot of jungler items sort of have
Mhm.
been brought into the forefront. Any surprises from this initial round robin phase that stood out to you?
Um, Surprises. I wouldn't say surprises in like the literal word surprising, but like it's more the fact of how many teams are picking up. Like obviously Cyclone Spin, he played Set last year, so it's not a
Mm-hmm.
surprise that he brought out Set, but it's more like now Panda Cat played it a game. Some people have been playing it in scrims, like to people you wouldn't expect to play Set ADC, and they're trying it out now as well. I'd say that's probably the biggest one is just the ADC players starting to pick these different non-traditional ADC gods and play them in the ADC role just because of the jungle items right now.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is that you're basically I think the only solo laner who's really still picking up King Arthur, even though Guardians are so in the meta. Is there a specific reason that tend to like the King Arthur? Or is it just something you're familiar with? You're sort of famous for getting that quadra kill a couple seasons ago. So, is it just
Yeah,
the familiarity with King Arthur that makes him easy to play?
I think it's a bit of both. I think obviously I know the god really well. I know like all the ins and outs and little intricate things you can do with the god.
Hmm.
So I think that's part of the reason why. But also, I think he's just really good. I think King Arthur is like a god where you need him to. He's like he's like a checklist on how the solo lane is doing right now.
Hmm.
Like if Arthur's really OP, then that means that like he needs like other gods need to be buffed. And if like he's not being picked, that means like the other gods need to be nerfed that are being picked. Like he's a good god for keeping the lane in check and like helping balance the whole lane around that god specifically.
He's a
But for King,
like bit of
gone?
a litmus test for the
Yeah,
solo
yeah,
lane. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. That's it. Well, that's how I see him anyway. I see him as like a litmus test on how the solo lane is and what needs to be buffed and what needs to be nerfed. But in terms of like the current meta of King Arthur, I just think that when players are kind of getting greedy in solo and picking like Terra solo and them type of picks, you kind of you have to try and match the late game.
Hmm.
So obviously, like Cthulhu, Terra, both in solo, they're both very good late game gods. So you either have to match it, or you need to pick something which can just dominate the lane and snowball a lead and just try and get the win early before they have any impact in the game. And I think that's what King Arthur is really good at is getting a natural lead in the lane, rotating to Gold Fury at like 15 minutes and just 1v5ing an entire fight and going straight to fire, getting fire, taking all the towers, taking the phoenixes and just winning the game like that. I think that's what King Arthur is really good at.
Hmm.
And I think that's why I kind of like picking him still is just because I think that other solo lanes are getting kind of greedy with the picks in solo lane.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just don't think, and plus with other nerfs obviously as well, like Vamp Shroud getting nerfed a bit, R2 got nerfed a bit, but I wouldn't call it a nerf. It's kind of pathetic. Uh, Cerberus got a big nerf,
Yeah.
so yeah, he's kind of gone. But he's just with them nerfs coming in. I just think more Warriors in general will be played.
Yeah, that was basically my next question, and you just answered it. Do you feel like more warriors are going to be played? And I think even Nika said, if the other solo laner is going to play Terra, you can just pick a bit of a pressure, solo laner, and
Yeah,
just push the waves, and you don't have to really worry about a Terra clearing or anything like that, right? So as long as
yeah,
you
exactly.
can gain some advantage, and in that way, there's still sort of a game plan there. The group stage is coming up, and unfortunately, you don't really get to do any of the picking like you did last time, your team. But I was just sort of wanted to pick your brain. What would sort of the perfect group, for you be? Like, who would you want to play with?
Uh, the Valkyries. I'd love to play with the Valkyries. That'd be amazing. But obviously no BM because I don't think it's fair to evaluate the Valkyries as a team
Mhm.
till they all have normal ping. So yeah, I kind of think it's unfair that people kind of just dump on them.
Right, right.
But so excluding them because I think everyone would say them.
Sure.
Um, I think the Warriors, the Scarabs, even the Titans. I think um, Bolts and Dragons. Just anyone but Leviathans. I think personally for me, I think we have pretty good matchups into all them teams right now. I think the way the meta's playing out, I think we have better players in each role, and I think our general map play and team play and the way we trade objectives if we're behind and the way we play them from ahead, I think we're kind of just in like a real sweet spot in the meta in terms of like what we're picking and how we're playing. So I'm not really afraid of anyone, even Leviathans. Honestly, I think they look pretty poor against the Titans this weekend. I think they played.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
they so. I think that's the beauty of like being in a good team and being like in the upper echelon of like the SPL is you kind of just don't really care who's in your group because you just know when you have confidence that you can beat anyone in your group. So yeah.
All right. Well, I think you guys play your last game of the round robin this upcoming weekend, right? And then go into the group
hmm
stages.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I'm basically all out of questions here, variety. So now I'm asking. It seems like a lot of people are into your scripts. So I think time to complain about those guys, or if anyone is rubbing you the wrong way in your scrims or something like that. And otherwise, if you have anyone you want to shout out or anything you want to talk about SPL or Smite in general, want to give the floor to you. How you feeling about
hmm
Smite and stuff?
How am I feeling about Smite and stuff? Um, I made a long. I wouldn't. Maybe, I don't think rant's the word, but I made like a long criticism of the way the game's being balanced on Twitter like 3 weeks ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I'm seeing balance in the upcoming patches, I feel like Hires maybe read it, and because I think when I made the tweet, there was like a lot of just I think just bad design or like balance changes. Should I say like the hell being triple buffed in a singular patch? Like, of course the god's gonna come back because she's just that type of god that
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
any small buff can bring her back.
Right.
And then obviously the jungle starters got buffed, like all the upgrades got buffed, and then suddenly next patch every single jungle item gets buffed as well. So now it's like plaguing the whole game of just full pen ools and set ADC and other ADC like other assassin ADCs. So yeah, I think I just want to see the game be a bit balanced, a tiny bit better. That's what I really want, Smite personally.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of one question I had. We saw some pretty low kill games this past weekend. I want to say, and I think a lot of that maybe comes to the fact that it's a pretty heavy burst meta. It's like very easy to die in
Yeah,
Smite right now.
yeah.
Do you sort of think there'll be some changes to that? Maybe make it a little bit give some take buffs to the take players here,
I mean, how has Soul Reaver not been nerfed, man? Come on, it's been so long. Like the item's just doing all my HP in every single team fight. But yeah, I think when these type of metas is happening and it's just instant one shot burst meta, they last way shorter than any other meta in Smite, I think, and because even like healer metas, I think they last shorter than just because the whole general player base, not just like ranked or like SPL, but like the whole player base feels the one shot meta compared to like a healing meta when people don't play it properly in casuals and stuff.
right?
Everyone feels the impact of like one shot meta. So
Yeah, that
I
is
don't,
true.
yeah, I don't think this meta is going to stay around for a lot longer.
Hmm. That's a good point to bring up. All right, Variety. Thank you so much for joining me here on the SPL Rundown. Just want to wish you and your team the best of luck in Phase 3 group
Thank you, sir.
stages, and looking forward to Worlds as well. So, thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming on.
Hopefully we don't choke this time.
Yeah. Hey, I can put some money on you, I think. So, you got my luck, all right?
Let's go.
All right, thanks a lot, man.
Cheers.
All right, perfect. It's that time of the week for us to make our pick for week 5 of phase 3 here. Only 4 games in week 5 because it's the end of the first set of round robin. Jmac, let's start with you here for the Camelot Kings versus the Valhalla Valkyries. Who you got in this one?
I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. I think this is just gonna be a Kings 2-0. I mean, we've seen the Valkyries take some teams to 3. This is their ultimate test of if this is a teams just aren't playing to. I'm not gonna say playing a disrespectful play up against them, or if the Valks have actually just been improving. But I think the Kings are just gonna take this one 2-0.
Vonny, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. Quick 2-0. I don't fancy the Kings to be a roster that'll, get an ego over beating the Valkyries. I'm pretty sure they'll just get in and out.
Cherry, same for you. Kings 2-0.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't think. I mean, like, I just think it really depends on like what Valks decide to do, but probably use Kings too.
Sure. All right, Vonny, let's start with you for the next set of week 5, sorry. That is the Olympus Bolts versus the Tartarus Titans. I think this one is in studio, if I'm correct.
Ooh.
So, it might be the set of the week, maybe?
Yeah, I think this one is. Yeah, this one is.
Who you got, Vonny? Bolts or Titans?
Man. Honestly, Titans 2-0. Like, I think the Titans win this set regardless, and I'd like to say 3 games, but I just think they're a little bit too hot right now for the Bolts to handle. So I just think Titans 2-0.
Cherry, how about you? Bolts versus Titans.
I think I was honestly. I'll just say Bolts. Maybe I want to see Bolts come out. I want to see maybe Jade come out with like a different strat. Like honestly, I think what will end up happening. I hope they don't ban the Afro. I think it's really bad if you just like give up on trying to beat it now, and just ban it because then you've basically like submitted to if we play these guys in group stage where they have a free ban now because we have to ban Afro because we don't want to play against it. So hopefully they like just lose the set. Who cares? Like if you can't beat it, I think if they play against it, I'm hoping Jake and Lasbar mainly like kind of have ideas of what they're gonna do and just like you do not want to wait and let Afro get a free game. You want to make it really hard for the Afro to play the game, and I'm hoping like Bolts kind of end up doing that. And I'm hoping Cyclone picks set, and I'm hoping it loses. Not because like I hate Cyclone, but I don't like that character. I don't think he's that good. So I'm just hoping picks it and everyone realizes how bad that pick is because I don't want to see that pick in my ranked games anymore.
Sure. J-Mac, how about you? Olympus Bolts versus Tartarus Titans.
Man, this is tough. I think I'm going to give it to Titans here, and I think it's just because they control the picks and bans too much with this comp now.
Yeah.
I think that this new comp that they built can easily be a case of, do you want to fight it? Do you have an answer to it? Or, okay, you don't have an answer to it. How much are you going to give away now because you don't want to deal with this kind of composition? And I don't really know how much of an answer the Bolts have at this point. They've got a decent god pool to kind of flex around for, but I think in the last few sets that we've seen from the Bolts, especially even in some of these studio sets, they've looked really kind of hit or miss, kind of a little bit shaky. Even in that Scarab set in game 1 where I thought that they probably should have won game number 1. There's just too many misplays across the board. It's not so much that they get into their own head. It's they win a team fight, and it's one of those things that you can't really fault team for going, we won this team fight. We beat them in mid. We're taking their tier 2 tower. There's no way that they're going to take a fire giant.
Right.
Like that's not something you ever really prepare for. But I think that the Bolts just kind of lag behind a little bit of some of the other teams in the pack on dealing with teams taking objectives away from them. Because, like, sure, you'll win a team fight. Who cares? But you're going up against the Titans who have proven that they're fine with going late game. They're fine with just dominating early if that's the case, because now you have to play up against this composition that we've drafted to destroy your early. And now how is your late game going to even fare against it? I don't know. I think I'm going to give Titans... I don't even want to say 2-1. I think this is going to be Titans 2-0.
Sure.
Maybe for my sanity 2-0.
All right, Cherry, let's start with you on this third set of week 5. The Jade Dragons versus the Oni Warriors. Who you got?
I'll go with the Oni Warriors.
Spicy pick?
But there is more like me hoping they kind of pull it out and less like believe that they're like better at. But I mean, but I do feel like I mean, I'm not saying like they can't win, but
Mhm.
you know, obviously odds are in the favor of the Dragons. But
Right.
I think I believe in the on the Oni homie boys. I think
Sure.
Doris, like I really think it's just when Doris is feeling himself when he's finding picks he wants to play. I think that team will always look really good. I mean, obviously, like Nick is important and like you want him to have a good game and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like if Doris having a good game, this team will look better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Vonny, how about you? Who you got in this one?
I actually do think on the Warriors 2-1.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why. Honestly, maybe it's just because the Dragons have lost their last 2.
Yeah.
And I think that they may be sliding a
Sure.
little bit. And so I think what we see from the Dragons this week will be something that we've never really seen before. I mean, because if they're just stubborn and play what they've been playing, I think they just lose outright. But
Hmm.
I think the fact that they'll be having to make such a big adjustment to kind of their draft and game strategy, they'll probably also drop another one to the Warriors.
Sure. All right, J-Mac, who you got in this one? Jade
I guess
Dragons versus Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I guess I'll stand as the lone one on this one. I think that
Mhm.
the Dragons do take this, but I'm also in agreement it will be a 2-1.
Mm.
Warriors dual lane specifically, like Neil and Vode, ever since Neil's come down, like Vode has been really playing out of his mind
Yeah.
with getting so much pressure in duo. And if the Dragons duo doesn't step up from their, I'm going to say from their Titans game performance, where that was probably
Yeah.
the worst duo lane that I've seen from the Dragons this phase, maybe
Yeah.
even this entire season, I think that the Warriors can just outpace them. But I think after a 1-4 weekend for the Dragons, like that's got to be saying to them, like something has to change.
Mhm.
And I think this week is a perfect time for them to try something just new and out there, especially before a big patch hits and could potentially change things. I mean, Tiamat and Raijin are still good. They're still going to be good until their buffs come out or until their nerfs come out. And then obviously all this other stuff that goes with it. I think the Dragons will take this one, but I think it's definitely going to be a lot closer than people will give credit for. So I'm going to go 2-1.
Sure. All right, J-Mac, let's stick with you here for the last set of
okay.
week 5. The Atlantis Leviathans versus the Scarabs. Remind me, is this going to be played in studio? It kind of feels
Yes.
like it should be.
Yep. The last set of each of the 2 days will be in studio.
Perfect. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. I feel that I'm almost obligated to say that this should be 3 games no matter what, and that the just because the Scarabs have done it to every team but the
They
Warriors.
have,
I
yeah.
don't know how the Warriors was the one team that they just like didn't show up on and lost the O2 on there, but I think this is the Leviathans taking this one. I'm gonna say 2-0, even though like the 2-1 is obviously like, you know, this it's a Scarabs game. You never can bet against a
Right.
3-game set.
Right.
But I don't think the Leviathans are one that'll really give them that inch. Like they've got the stronger late game than the Scarabs. Even if they kind of forfeit some of the early game, Leviathans, former, Sanguine, that's always been a team that does play towards late. And I think that's where the Scarabs often kind of falter.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they do take games late, it's not like, hey, we lost out in the early, then we, dominated mid, and then there was just no chance you fight us late game. Even their late game fights and late game games that they get to have always been still fairly close.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm gonna give this one just 2 out of Leviathans.
Sure. Bonnie, how about you? Atlantis Leviathans versus Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, I think this one goes 2-1 because the Leviathans kind of recently have not been doing much early game.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of just take it late. And I do think that in at least one of these games, the Scarabs will kind of get a good fight and maybe just kind of wipe the game off that. But
Sure.
realistically, the Leviathans are the much better team. And so I think if it does go to a game 3, they'll be much more privy to that. And they'll take it 2-1 over the Scarabs.
Sure. All right, Cherry, finish us off here for the Phase 3 round robin. Who you got in the Atlantis Leviathans versus the Solar Scarabs?
I think Leviathans probably end up taking this. I think Leviathans are a team that's like, they're always going to be solid. They're not going to like stomp you early. They're not going to like lose too hard early. And I think it'll come to team fights, and I think Shinto's just gonna pop off. Like they just have like really good teamwork. As long as they don't, as long as they play against comps they know how to play against, I think Leviathans are like actually the best team right now. But they clearly have no idea how to play against Titans, so maybe that would be really bad for them when it comes to important games. But like I think in a normal setting, like meta picks and stuff, I think Leviathan's just 2-0 here.
Sure. Last thing I want you guys to maybe predict is as soon as this set of round robin is over, I believe the top 2 teams are going to be drafting their groups for the group stage here in phase 3. So maybe let's just have a sort of open discussion. What do you guys expect these groups to look like? Do you think, there are certain teams that even if they are lower in the standings, some of the higher ranked teams just don't want to play? Or, how do you think this is going to sort itself out, right? There's only so many combinations really that can exist, right? So what are your expectations here for the group stages, or at least the draft?
So I think because based off our picks, we're all assuming it's Titans and Leviathans for top 2.
Yeah.
Just based off that, because we were all predicting Leviathans, we're all predicting Titans. I think.
Oh, assuming Leviathans is picking?
Assuming
they're first? Or Titans?
I think it'd be Titans first.
I believe so, yeah.
I think Titans are
first.
guaranteed first seed if they 2-0 this week, but I'd have to double check. There's a whole bunch of math that goes on behind the scenes that that I don't have enough knowledge on to know for it. But if Titans are picking, I think no matter who picks first, they're throwing Valks in opposite group. I think for either of these teams, Valkyries is just one. Actually, they might even put them in their group. That's what I was trying to go for. Is whoever has first pick is just going to get Valkyries for themselves. So they'll want to make sure they might even hold like.
Wait, how does it work again? Was it not like they choose for the other team?
Yeah, you choose the other team's draft.
Okay.
So you don't. So it's one of those where this might be a case where the Valkyries don't get picked up first,
right?
Yeah. Because you want the Valkyries for yourself. So I think this is one where now you throw more of a curveball of which of the obviously in the next one's the top 3 teams do you not want to go up against here?
Yeah.
Like who does Titans pick? I mean, I think it's between Kings and Dragons, right? You're just gonna pick one of the or Bolts, I guess.
I think Titans throw the Kings in the Leviathans draft because that was the team that did beat the Titans, if I'm not mistaken. This phase, yeah, it was 2-0 Kings over Titans previously.
Right.
So I think Titans throw the Kings in the opposite bracket. I think,
and then the Levi's give them the Bolts and the Dragons.
Yeah, that's not really good.
Yeah,
I actually think this is kind of scuffed for
first pick.
Titan, because I do think it's a 5-1-2 split. Maybe it's a bit unfair to Scarabs, but they almost lost the Valks at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I can't really put them that far up. I would say it's a 5-1-2. I don't think Warriors are as good as the top 5, but I don't think they're as bad as the bottom 2. In my opinion,
no, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. In the middle. Not. So I really think it's Titans going to end up with 2 of the really good teams. I would say Bolts and Kings or Bolts and Dragons. They're definitely up there, on the same level as Titans, and then they're gonna end up having Valks. Sure, let's say theoretically they get a free game or whatever, but they still need to get top 2, right? Or no, actually they need top 3 only, right? Okay, yeah, I guess it's fine. I guess the groups are fine. Yeah, never mind. I think you only need top 3 to qualify to playoffs. So I think they're chilling. They're probably not too upset. If you're getting first place, you're getting Valks. Even the other group, you still have Scarabs and Oni Warriors. Even though those 2 teams are could easily upset anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So the other group will be spicy, though. I don't think that one group will be pretty chill, but the other group will be pretty spicy to see. All 4 teams can definitely get the top 3. So
yeah, it's kind of a weird spot. Being first seed in this case might actually be worse than being second seed, just because second seed can throw 2 of those big picks. So it's basically which of the top 3 do you not want to throw there that are remaining? Do you want to give away the Bolts and then face the Dragons Kings, or do you give away the Kings, face the Bolts and the Dragons?
You think maybe they just give them Warriors. Maybe let's say they think Scarabs are just worse than the Warriors. Maybe they just give them the Warriors, and then you're gonna get because they can only give you 2, right? They can only. So maybe they do that. Honestly, they just give them the Warriors, and then you get 2 other teams, and it doesn't matter because at least you make sure you don't have Warriors. You kind of. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're gonna end up with 2 hard picks and Valks, right?
I think at that point. even though, yeah, maybe the plays give them warriors and make them pick which two they want to give up, I think it's still just so valuable being able to give away a top 3 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That way, because basically at that point, being the first seed, it's you're choosing your destiny of which other 2 that you're facing.
True.
Compared to giving that fate to the other ones. Because like the Titans, I think they have decent matchup against the Dragons. Even in this last one that we saw, I think that the matchup against the Bolts will be a real big deciding factor for the Titans too. If they want to keep the Bolts in their bracket, or if they want to keep the Dragons or the Kings in their bracket. But I think whoever gets first seed potentially. I think they potentially pass the Kings to the opposite set, because I don't think either of those teams really want to face up against the Kings, especially now that Captain Twig's found his momentum in jungle.
Sure.
And also, they're the run killers. Obviously we don't have an undefeated streak going now because Leviathans lost, but you don't want to give the run killers like a potential chance to really just run away with things. So
Sure.
yeah, I think whoever's first pick probably gives the Kings away and just takes the Bolts Dragons, and I think either of those teams have good matchups into it. And then it's just you throw probably Oni Solar and in the other, or Oni Solar to the other team, and then you give Oni Solar to the other team, and then you take the Valks for your final one. So
Yeah.
I think that's probably how it'll be. It's just you first pick just gives the Kings to the other one, and then it's Bolts Dragon, Oni Solar, Valk.
Thanks for watching the SPL Rundown this week. Just a reminder that we're going to be off next week since the SPL is taking a week off as well, and we'll be back right before the group stages to get everyone ready for those. If you want to catch extended cuts or past episodes of the SPL Rundown, be sure to check out our YouTube. That's youtube.com/APM Productions. And finally, if you have any ideas for future guests, feel free to DM me on Twitter @APM2 or @APM Productions. We love to hear comments from people who watch. And of course, I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to my 3 wonderful analysts this week. Jmac, why don't you tell the people where they can find you on the internet?
So if you ever want to follow me and whatever I do, you can follow me on Twitter @_Jmac Tucker. You can also follow my Twitch on twitch.tv/Jmac Tucker. And then obviously anytime that you watch the SPL, there's a pretty good shot that you might see me there. So hey, maybe you'll see me soon.
Vonny, where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter @Vonny Balboa, or getting timed out for starting copy pastas in the Smite Game Twitch chat.
Cherryo, finally, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people see what you're up to?
You can find me on twitter.com/Cherryo. I would give my YouTube and Twitch, but I'm a retired content creator now, so there's no point. Catch me at the next Dota TI, maybe. As the grind starts.
Yeah. And of course, the last shout out I want to give is to shop.smiteproleague.com. Be sure to support the SPL and, of course, the players and teams that are in it as well. And they love seeing the jerseys that the fans buy and all the stuff there. So please keep supporting the SPL as well. Thank you guys all for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. We're taking next week off, remember, so we'll catch you guys before the group stages. Bye-bye.